Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I'm back to the desk after a week of sun and fun in San Diego and Palm Springs. We nailed the weather, which makes all the difference in the world. It would have totally sucked if we traveled to shitty weather. But we caught the last day of a record-breaking heat wave in San Diego, and we sat in the sun and swam all day. Then, when it cooled off and we were able to full-on tourist, and when I say tourist, my Oura Ring said that I walked over 115,000 steps over 6 days, which means we didn't cut any corners when it comes to seeing San Diego and Palm Springs on this vacation. And when I say we didn't cut any corners, we did so much, and I'm just going to run through all the different things we did. We started off with La Jolla, then Pacific Beach, then we went to the USS Midway Museum, we did Coronado, the Gaslamp Quarter, Little Italy, Joshua Tree, Palm Springs, and I know I said La Jolla, and I know it's really La Jolla, but I wanted you to think I was really dumb for a second, so hopefully you got a chuckle there, and it is debatable whether I'm really dumb or not, but that's a totally different conversation. Getting back to the vacation, we ate out for 16 meals, and the monster burritos recommended by the one and only Don Wallace, who's been on the podcast, were my favorite. Everything was going great on this vacation. We were making memories. But then, once we got to Palm Springs, my nose felt like someone dumped pepper in it. I was sneezing more than normal, but it wasn't too bad, and I chalked it all up to allergies, and I went out and enjoyed a pool day in the hot Palm Springs weather. This was Wednesday, and that night, my allergies are starting to get worse and worse, and I wake up at about 2:30 in the morning so stuffed up, I am positive that I have the COVIDs. I decide I'm going to put on a mask and go back to sleep and hopefully not get my wife and kids sick. In the morning, my wife and kid headed out to the Palm Springs aerial tram without me. This is supposed to be a really cool experience, but it's also one of those things, like we're seeing at ski resorts right now, where you need a reservation, and if you don't have a reservation, you are totally screwed and you're going to wait like 3 hours and it's going to be a horrible experience. Well, my family didn't wait for that horrible experience. They decided to pack it up when they realized there was going to be a long line, and they went to see some giant dinosaur sculptures in the desert. And on their way home, they picked up some COVID tests. I stayed in and finished the edit of this week's podcast, and then I was stressing about what was going to happen when I found out I had COVID. The things that start running through my mind are, am I going to send my family back to Seattle? Why quarantine in San Diego for a week? I have plenty of friends in San Diego, and I guarantee they won't want me to stay with them for a quarantine. Do I think about calling them? Probably not. Do I rent a hotel for a week, or do I do a one-way rental to Seattle? Well, gas prices make a one-way rental a no-go, so I am stressing when they get back to the villa. And immediately, I take my COVID test, and I wait for 15 minutes, and those 15 minutes feel like an eternity. But I come away clean from the test. So I take my first allergy medicine ever, which kind of helps, and continue for the last day of vacation wearing a mask. It's such a relief that I don't have the virus, and we wake up on departure day, and once we start driving back to San Diego, I slowly feel the sickness start leaving my body. And by the time I get to the airport, I feel like I'm 100%. I'm convinced I'm allergic to Palm Springs, which is funny because I got married there. So that was spring break, and now I'm scrambling to record this intro and get the podcast out. And if I did have the sickness, my plan was to stay in San Diego, record the intro on my phone, which would have been shitty quality and everything, but while it would have been a crazy thing for me to do, it still would have worked out. Speaking of things working themselves out, my guest this week literally came from nothing to take over the world of skating at the very highest level. Marco de Santi came to the US from Brazil when he was 15 years old with $100 in his pocket and a dream. And he's parlayed that dream into a championship career that morphed into the Vegas show life. It's a story about the American dream for a foreigner, and it's awesome. Before we get into it, I want to remind you that I'm hiring a part-time social media person. I've heard from a few of you, and while you've been great, I need someone who gets what I'm all about and who can sell me on their skills. So if that's you, email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com, and we can discuss the ins and outs of this paid position and hopefully grow the shit out of this podcast together. I also want to encourage everyone who's listening right now to tell their friends about the show, and when someone asks for podcast recommendations on social media, take the 20 seconds and tag the Powell Movement. Let them know that this is a great show that they should listen to because it really does help the show. Finally, please follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement and support my incredible sponsors who make this show happen. They are the 10 Barrel Brewery, Elon Skis, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Stanley, and Rollerblade. Now, let's talk with Marco de Santi. You live in Las Vegas in a nice residential neighborhood, and you have a competition-sized vert ramp in your backyard. Tell us about the ramp.
Well, growing up skating only shit ramps, I always had in my mind, like, if I buy a ramp, it's going to be the best ramp. So I bought a G ramp. It's actually one of the few ones in the US, at least, that it's a competition ramp. To me, it's like the Ferrari of the ramps, the best ramp, for sure.
With your ramp, do you have problems with all the noise that the vert ramp makes and your neighbors complaining about it?
Well, that's a funny story because, like, I had a problem with the neighbor. First was because the noise, but it didn't make enough noise because the ramp is not loud. And then it came to that he said, like, it was an eyesore. So it was more like a TV show thing that happened because there was TV channels in my backyard and, like, interviews, and I went to the commissioners, and the commissioners all thought was ridiculous, but they kept going with the story, like they keep like feeding the guy, which everybody accepted. Everybody said yes. And then actually, like, the whole neighborhood got together. I had like over 15,000 signatures to keep the ramp, like people show up with the commissioning. It was amazing. It turns out like I felt very welcome to have my ramp in my backyard. Everybody like wants it.
Did that neighbor or the neighbors who were complaining, did they do anything to try to get back at you, like shine lights at your house or do anything to piss you off?
No, because he's not even like an actual neighbor. He lived like across the street. Like our backyards see each other, but like it's across the street. Like it's a wide street. And he was just being a dick. That's all he was. He was trying to be.
So this guy was creating problems, but he really didn't need to just because he had nothing better to do. He was harassing you.
Exactly what it is.
And then speaking of problems, where you grew up in Sao Paolo, Brazil, I'm sure there's a ton of problems over there, being that it's like a place known for poverty and crime and violence, and I'm sure there's beautiful parts of it as well. But was there a lot of problems growing up, per se?
Yes and no. When you grow up in a place like that you don't know any better, it's street smart, You know where to go, you know where to put yourself to it, So, like, it's pretty much you stay out of trouble kind of thing.
Well, I've been to Rio, and I wasn't able to go into the favelas, and that's probably a good thing because they would have probably killed me. But when you grew up, did you ever go into the favelas and see what was going on in those parts of Sao Paulo?
I lived close to favelas, yes, and you do avoid to go there, but then sometimes you become friends with them, and then you even go inside the favelas. Like, I've been to parties that was like closed up inside the favela, and it becomes the safest place you can possibly be. Like, cops won't go in. Like, when you're in there and you know people, you're safe, 100% safe. Even like when you go to Carnival to Rio, like they know not to mess with you. Like you walk by the favelas, so it's almost like you can be the same in Los Angeles. I live in LA, and like you just don't go where you're not supposed to. At certain time. Like you have to be on the schedule.
Did you have some scary friends growing up who lived in the favelas that you were tight with?
Yes, but like you don't see it until like later, like until you grow up, and then you realize like, oh shit, I was walking with some danger people, and someone ends up in jail. But like you think it's normal. It's a weird thing because like I used to hang out with kids, they used to steal it, do like some crimes, and I wouldn't do it myself, but like you kind of think like, it's kind of normal. It's weird.
What's going on within those places? I mean, those kids are going out and doing crimes and stuff, but like what kind of crimes are you talking about? Is it like your standard pickpocketed stuff and stealing phones and that kind of shit?
Yeah, that kind of shit. Nothing like armed, like at least the people that I knew. Of course, like I had friends that like one of my best friends, he's actually a really good skater. His sister, she was like a bank robber, and she like stabbed people on the street. Like she was like a badass girl, and I remember hanging out in his apartment, that was kind of not the favela, but close by. And we used to make fun of the criminals, because they're all like skinny. And they would just say like, oh, you're only danger because you have a weapon, Like me, always being a little bit like bigger than the other kids, like I would say like, I would fuck you up if you're not like a gangster,
Yeah.
But like we were like in a safe environment to joke around and do certain thing, If you do that anywhere else, you probably get shot.
So that whole area is kind of like the violence and the crime is location specific. Does that keep you in certain places when you're growing up? Like you're going to stay away from a lot of places and never ever venture there because you don't want to get hurt?
Yeah, man. Actually, like when I moved back to US, my mother moved to this other neighborhood. Then I would go there, and I would be afraid to walk to the train station. Like I would be afraid to go, like at night, because people didn't know us from there. Like, and I'm also being more light skinned. Like blonde hair. Like when you go to the ghetto, people are more darker. And I was afraid. Like I would go visit my mom, or be inside my mom's house, and I would not be walking around, or like if I would drive, I would have to like close my windows. Because they probably think I was not from there. And then if you're not from the place, it can be danger.
What's the craziest thing that you've ever seen in person go down where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I live here and that shit happens?
To be honest with you, like I only heard stories. Like crazy things to me never happened. I don't know. Like we happened to like get out of the metro, the train, and then kids were like harassing like this old man. Then I would like protect him, and then I would have to run away, like I run like for my life kind of thing. But oh yeah, like one day, me and my mother, like leaving school, we went to a surf shop to buy, I think, a watch, and 4 or 5 guys armed, and they put us inside the store. They robbed the whole store, and they locked us inside, and then the police has to come and open the store for us while we were inside.
That's pretty crazy. That doesn't happen to most people. And speaking of your mom and being able to buy you a watch and do different things for you, is it mom and dad together, or is it just with your mom growing up?
Well, they got divorced when I was about 14,
Okay.
15. But by the time they got divorced, I already moved to US. I moved to US when I was 15. So like I didn't have any problem with that.
You moved to the US when you were 15, and what? That would have been like 98, right?
It was 99 when I moved. It was April 99. I was 15, turning 16.
Okay. So back in Brazil, when you're growing up, it seems like the kind of place where every kid wants to be a professional football player. Did you play any organized team sports growing up?
Yes, growing up, I only played soccer. I was like obsessed. I played in good teams. Like I was even like about to get hired, for like big teams. But then rollerblade show up in my life. And my dad got really pissed off because like I was really good. I was always the top player, and I stopped going to practice and just want to skate, skate, skate. But I never been like a team player because even like playing soccer, I was the kind of player that would take the ball and do everything by myself. I wouldn't pass the ball. But I was good enough to people not get too upset with me.
Yeah, as long as you're scoring goals and making things
Yeah.
happen, it's not a problem. But once you do start having problems, then it's an issue. But either way, how does skating start for you? I mean, is it something that you just get a pair of skates and go to a skate park and you get hooked right away?
Well, we were living in a neighborhood that was in a house, and then we moved to this other neighborhood that was like an apartment building and has a tons of kids there. And when I moved there, all the kids had skates. I did skateboard before on the streets like that because skateboard is also like huge in Brazil. And then I started like getting the skates from my friends, and then I just loved it. And it was just the 90s. That was the hottest thing back in the 90s. And I was just one of those kids that learned everything really fast. And I got hooked, and I turned pro like in 3 years of skating kind of thing.
And were there any stereotypes in Brazil about being an inline skater? I mean, we've seen it in the States where there's a stigma that inline isn't as cool as skateboarding or BMX. How did they treat inline back in Brazil back then?
Back then, the 90s, they had no option, I think. In Sao Paulo, we have like about, no exaggeration, like 15 paid skate parks. But the skate park in Brazil, they were like roller rinks with ramps in the back kind of thing. So people would go for like skate around, and then it would become a nightclub after, and the skate ramps were there too. They mixed roller rink with a skate park. So like you used to call roller rinks, but they have half pipes, they have street course, and skateboarders were not allowed. And that would piss them off a lot too. And then when it started dying out, they started allowing skateboard, but we had the same thing. The hate was all over us, and it made me tough.
And back then, when you're coming up and everything's really popular and really cool, are you aware of the culture of inline skating? I mean, there's Fabiola, I'm sure she's already made it and you've probably heard of her. But are you hearing about all the other famous skaters all over the world and what's happening within the scene between Daily Bread and videos and stuff like that?
Well, that's the thing. I knew Fab before she went to the X Games for the first time.
Okay.
Like I was already watching her. I was like a fan kind of thing, because she always being super good. Like she was above the curve for sure. And there was other skaters there too. That was really good. We have like so many skaters. It was crazy. Like the half pipe was like always packed. And I was never aware of the. I mean, of course, we have like the hoax, like those VHS videos, and we knew Chris Edwards, Arlo Eisenberg, like they always made tours to Brazil too. I remember Chris Edwards, he came to one of the skate park and like 4,000 people inside the skate park, like no exaggeration. It was like insane. I don't even know why they let that many people inside.
Right.
When Rene Hubring and Arlo Eisenberg came too, it was packed. Rollerblade was just like insanely famous back then.
And are you doing everything on your skates? Are you skating street as well as vert as well as park? Or is it just strictly at these roller rinks skating half pipe and, park stuff when you feel like it?
No, I always did everything. I always did rails and hardcore street and skate park. And yeah, I always skate everything. I was just more passionate about half pipe. But like, because of my variety of friends, I always took rollerblade as a hangout thing, I was always with friends, and if they skate park, I would skate park. They skate rails, A lot of people don't know that about me, that I can skate rails and stuff.
How long are you skating until you realize that you have some real talent on skates and that skating might not just be a hobby, but it might actually be something more than just something you're doing with your friends?
Well, I started skating, I was like 9 or 10. When I was 13, I already was getting better than most of the people in the skate park, And I went to US in 97 for a Nice competition, and I won the amateur, and they qualified me to the pros. And then I skated against Mike Budnick, because they had the format that was head-to-head kind of thing. I lost from Mike Budnick, but like I just learned everything really quick. I was one of those kids that people like, oh, how he can learn so much in such a young age, Like I was one of the first ones doing switch tricks, and in Brazil I was one of the first one doing a lot of like the first tricks kind of thing,
Yeah. And how did you get the money to go over to the States back then? I mean, I'm guessing that you guys aren't rich. And do you have to work a bunch of odd jobs to get some money to get that first flight over for that NIS when you're 15 years old? It's probably 98.
Well, that's the thing. I grew up poor. My parents got rich. I don't know how. I was too young to understand. And then we went complete broke after.
Okay.
At the window of that they had money, that's when I went to Nice in 97. Then I went to a X trial in 98. And then by 99, they were getting broke. And that's when I decided to move to US because I want to like have my skating career and have these dreams of being sponsored and living. We all make stories in our head that we think they are truth, like that, like, oh, US, you're going to get sponsored right away. You're going to live off skating. Everybody's going to love you kind of thing.
Yes.
And because my family didn't have money in 1999, I had to ask an aunt for her credit card so she could buy my flight ticket. So she bought the ticket, and I had like $200 only. I came to US with Cesar and two other friends, and I told them I had money, so they had to lend me money so I could stay. So first thing I did was getting a job. As soon as I got in US, I worked as a dishwasher. Funny story, they didn't pay me.
Oh.
I worked for like over a month, and they didn't pay me, but I didn't know any better. So Cesar kept lending me money. So I work at labor, people that stay in front of Home Depot.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's what I did pretty much in the beginning until like I found like a job with a construction, a real job. And I was paying my bills. That's all I did. Like my first flight ticket, it took me over 3 years to pay the credit card in that because like I didn't have money. I had to keep like saving money so I could fly back and forth to Brazil as well so I don't stay illegal. That's another thing. I never stayed illegal in US. Not a single day.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there were many of times where you would have me write letters for you to a judge or someone saying that you were essential to the K2 program and that we needed you here, and I'd have dates of when we needed you, and that would get you like another 6 months in the States. So that was a battle your whole life pretty much, is trying to stay in the States?
Yeah, because like I knew I want my life to be here, and I want to do everything the right way. And it's true, like you helped me like incredibly. You did my first work visa actually back with K2.
Yeah.
And that was like the best thing ever to me actually, because that helped me even get my green card after.
You know, we're just trying to make everybody American here, Marco. That's what I was trying to do.
Well, you did it. I'm a good citizen. You did a good thing for US. I pay my taxes.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and now that ski season is winding down, it's time to think about what's next. And if you're a skier, nothing crosses over like inline skating. It's the only activity that mimics the motions of skiing and delivers the fun and freedom of snow in the dry seasons. On top of that, inline skating will save your knees compared to running, and it gives you more of a full body workout compared to biking. There is no better workout. The Rollerblade brand invented this sport, and they happen to make the most comfortable and highest performance skates on the market. So while ski season is ending, that carving sensation never has to end because Rollerblade makes products that'll keep you carving up the asphalt like you do on the snow during the winter. To find out more about all their amazing products, head on over to rollerblade.com. My next sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They have been supporting this show for over 5 years, and they support all the best in ski, snowboard, and bike. From a world-class team of athletes to standalone movies to supporting the most important events, 10 Barrel has deep roots in action sports. Product-wise, 10 Barrel not only brews the tastiest beers in the Northwest, their beers are arguably the tastiest in the country, and they also make the best seltzer on the market with their Clean Line seltzers, and their craft cocktails in a can pack a punch. And it should be known that if you want to enjoy any of their amazing products, do it outside, because that's what 10 Barrel wants you to do, drink beer outside, because that's where they play. So next time you're at the store, pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel and support the brand that supports the sports we love. To find out more, head on over to 10barrel.com. My final sponsor this round is Elan Skis. I've been skiing on Elan for the past 2 years, and I absolutely love them. Why? They are lighter and more playful than any ski I've been on in the past decade, but they are also rock solid underfoot when I hit the gas. That's because the people that build my Elan skis, well, they are skiers who shred the Slovenian Alps. They understand what skiing is all about, and that's a huge difference I've noticed since my first day on Elan skis, and you will too. I mean, there's a reason the brand is building a cult following in the US, and that reason is their skis are better. It's that simple. If you get a chance, demo a pair of Elan skis before the season ends and you're going to be a believer. I highly recommend my quiver of two, the Ripsticks 96 and 106. So if you can get to a demo, check them out. If you can't, you can find out all about the whole range of Elan skis over at elanskis.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. When you are that young, you're 15, 16 years old, and you totally just drop out of school way early and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to follow this skate dream and go to the US?
Yep. I dropped the school. My mom thought I was going to come back, and she was pretty crazy to let me go when I was 15 because I was like a little kid.
And you didn't speak any English. Like, I met you 3 years later and you still barely spoke English.
Oh, yeah. Like zero English. My English was like skatepark English. Talking to kids. True, yeah, that's true. It's funny to try to remember when you didn't speak English, because now I feel like I spoke English my whole life. But yeah.
When I think about it, it's like, I met you, you must have been over to the US twice already, and maybe your third trip you come over and it's you and Carlos Pianowski, and you guys bought your plane tickets, you flew over, and I think you just landed at LAX, and you're pretty much like, we're going to figure out everything that's going to happen this summer, and we're leaving in September. But you come to the U.S. with no money or anything. You just know where the first contest is. And is that the deal? We're just going to show up at the contest. We'll figure it out.
Dude, that was the competition in Huntington Beach, and that was totally the plan. We left. Actually, I met Carlos there. I didn't know he was coming to the same competition. I was living in Puerto Rico when that happened, and I contacted you at K2. And I had a pair of K2 that I was wearing for so long, and it broke before the competition. So I took somebody else's skates, which was size 9, when I wear size 7.5, and I went to Huntington Beach to compete there. And then when I met you personally, when you were like working for K2, and you guys took such a good care of us, like I remember being in a hotel. I met Brian Dawes, I met Sean Robertson, all those amazing guys, like skaters and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like you were like the really skinny, small kid with no pads skating a huge vert ramp that was on beat-up skates, and you're on K2, so I was like, hey, I've got to talk to this kid and make sure he's taken care of because he's on our brand, repping our brand, and he can't just be out on the streets. So it was pretty much like you had no place to stay and we took you in. Like you ended up staying with us and eating with us. And if we didn't take you in, someone else probably would have, but you didn't know what the plan was going to be.
Oh, definitely not. That was my first time like being treated like an athlete.
And I remember it was like, I think you might have even slept in the floor because we didn't get extra rooms for you. It was just like, hey, you can crash in here. But then we had the language barrier because you barely spoke any English. And like the one thing that we could get across was like the skate park language, like you said, of like, hey, I need new skates. Carlos did as well. I couldn't get Carlos the right size, so he ended up skating on another brand for his career. But we were able to get you in the right size. And that's pretty much how you ended up on K2 was through that trip, right?
I know. Yeah, it was through that trip. Actually, that was like what like pushed me for everything, kind of, like I met you, like that turns out being like really good because I got skate sponsor, I got my visa, like people got to know me kind of thing.
Yeah. And then I think that summer we didn't really see each other too much, but I think we met up again in Baltimore, I think it was at the end of the summer.
Yes, that's right.
The last contest of the year or something like that. You ended up with 8th place that qualified you for the X Games. And at this point, you've won a little bit of money. You've made a ton of contacts in the States. You've got a skate sponsor. Do you go home from that trip really, really excited with your progress? Like, holy shit, I'm going to make a career out of this now?
Yeah, you start seeing the light, like shining in the end of the tunnel kind of thing, I mean, I would never give up, I'm not the type of person that can't give up. But like, yeah, that was the beginning of my skating career as a skater, for real.
And then you go back to Brazil, but like you say, you're not anyone who's ever going to quit. So I'm guessing there was no resting or anything for you. Was it kind of like there was a fire lit under you now, and it was like you're going to skate vert even longer than you were before, and you're more driven than you ever were to skate yourself out of Brazil?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always had the dream to be the best in the world, like I will be one day, and that was my driving, I was just, how can I say this? I wouldn't practice enough, I would say. I was always doing something else. Like if I go back to Brazil, I'll be surfing, I'll still practice. But now that I know what an athlete is, after like I became one, but in the beginning, I thought, even though I want to be the best in the world, I didn't know how to be. So I was just being myself the whole time, like I would still go party, I still go surf, I still go do other things,
Yeah, it was kind of like you were happy to be there, but you weren't putting in the extra effort to make you the best in the world.
Yeah, I thought I was.
Right, but you learn a lot over your career. And when you get back to the States for that next summer, I think that's probably 2001 or 2002, there's more of a plan in place because you have this thing with K2 and you know that you're going to be put up in hotels now, and that makes things a lot easier. But it's still one of those things where in that second year of contests, or that second year that I knew you in contests, you were barely making the top 10 in contests. Then you go back to South America. Are you doing well in Latinx and all the contests like that, where you're one of the best in the world in the South American contests?
Yeah, most of the competition in Brazil, I was winning. Like out the Latinx games, I would win. And I did have like a lot of problems being accepted, I would say, like by the judges in US. Even one of the X games, I didn't qualify. I got 11th. I think it was 2003,
I think.
3 or 2. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I was the only one doing double flat spin. Like I did it my whole run. I didn't fall, and I got 11th. And even Arlo Eisenberg, he was like the announcer. They told the judge to reveal. They put my run on the screen again, and it was a big fight, because like back then I had like good sponsors too. I was sponsored by Mountain Dew, like K2, and the judge just wouldn't put me in the final. Like I should be like top 3 easy in that competition, like shouldn't be a problem. And a week later, it was the Gravity Games, which is just as big as X Games, and I got second place,
Yeah.
How that even possible?
Yeah, and I mean, before we even get to that point, because that is a huge point in your life, but your first big contract, and I know I'm going to say it's your first big one, because with K2, you're not making that much money by any means. We're probably giving you a little bit of money and then some travel and stuff. But your big contract is in 2002 with Mountain Dew Brazil. They sign you, and you're like the first action sports athlete of all of Mountain Dew Brazil, I feel like. So inline's just as big as skateboarding or BMX at that point, and you are Mountain Dew's premier athlete?
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. They came to Brazil, and I did a show for them, and they just liked me so much, because I was doing tricks, drinking the soda and stuff like that. And I believe I was like the first Mountain Dew athlete in extreme sport, actually.
In all of extreme sports?
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny because they only asked me to do X Games and Gravity Games, but they did give me a good pay. They were really nice to me. That was a really good sponsorship.
So they only sponsor you for 2 events? That's how that works?
No, they sponsored me for the whole year. I was actually, like, I think 2 years with them.
Okay.
But in the contract, only said I have to make to the X Games and Gravity Games. Like that's the only like things they asked me to do it.
So that not making that X Games that one year was a big deal, even though you should have made it.
Exactly. That was my first year too. Like I should be getting a medal, not like not even make to the finals. It was pretty ridiculous.
And with the soda brand, I mean, can you make like 30, 40 grand a year from just a soda brand?
Yeah, about 30 grand probably.
Oh, it's amazing. So for you, that's like winning the fucking lottery, I would think. Like a huge contract compared to any other contract you've ever had before, and all for just skating, which is like something kids do.
True. It's funny you say that because I think now it is a job. Like back then it wasn't as seen as it is right now.
Right.
Like something that kids do.
Well, I just mean it's something that you did for fun when you were a kid and then it becomes a career, not something that like you first stop doing when you get to be an adult, but it's like it's a sport where a passion that you pick up as a kid and it's like I love everything about this. I never want to stop. Most people don't get paid for those type of things, but you're able to get a huge contract out of it.
True. Yeah, it's a pretty lucky thing though. It's like a dream come true kind of thing.
And then while your competitive career is relatively short, who are the other brands that pay you to skate back then?
I was supposed to also buy Adidas as well. Adidas gave me like a small amount and also like whatever outfit I want, all the clothing. And K2 and yeah, those are the three sponsors that I had that was worth it. Everything else just like free stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, when you put your sponsor list down and you wrote K2, Adidas, and Mountain Dew, I mean, those are some pretty heavy hitters. That's probably more important than any sponsors that anybody else really has if you just look at 3 brands, which is incredible.
I know. That's like 3 huge companies for sure. The biggest problem.
Yeah, and what's crazy to me about your rise is that you went from the kid who was really skinny. I mean, I know you say you were buff, but that was maybe to your friends in Brazil back when you were growing up.
No, yeah, after I grew up, yeah.
You're really skinny and you were going bigger than almost everyone, and you're going to be the king of double flips and vert at some point. But you're also the kid who never wears pads. You always wore a helmet, it seemed like, and that was it. Throughout your career, did you ever put on pads?
Yeah, that's a funny story because I did wear pads until I was 13, 14, and I won in a competition, and I only wear knee pads. My knee pad got caught on a wood, like a little hole in a half pipe, and it came down and just scratched my knee like so bad I couldn't put the knee pads back again, and I had to compete with no pads. And then after that competition, I threw those knee pads in the garbage, and I just never put it back again. And actually, like I cannot put knee pads. I don't know how to follow my knees. Like it doesn't matter if I have knee pads or not. Yeah, that always bugs people because my whole career, people told me, "Oh, you're never going to be able to do this trick or that trick because you don't wear pads." And end up like I did all the tricks pretty much. Even there's tricks in today's that people don't never ever did it. Like double flat spin 360 stuff like that.
I always looked at it as there was no way you were going to let yourself fall, and that's why you didn't wear pads. I didn't realize that it was from an injury years back or from your knee pads scratching your knee really bad and you never wanting to put them back on. But it was one thing that separated you from everybody else was you were going huge, doing these crazy tricks, but everybody else had pads on, it seemed like, except for you. And did other riders look at you like you were crazy?
Yeah, they used to make comments and everything on top of the ramp. I remember like when first saw a double backflip, people like, oh, a lot of athletes told me, like, you're never going to be able to do a double backflip because you're going to fall on your knees. And I was like, the first one doing it.
Yeah, and I think that happens like right around 2003-ish. I mean, that's really when things in your career pick up significantly. It's like in every contest that you enter, you're going to be in the top 10, it seems like, in 2003. It's also the year that you don't make the X Games, which we talked about, which totally sucked for you. But was that year the year that you were in the U.S. for like your first full year and you spend time at Woodward or a lot of time at Woodward and that really elevates your trick game?
Yeah, that was my first year at Woodward. It was 2003. And from 2003 to 2005, like being able to go to Woodward, that was a game change. Like I progressed huge, I was more focused. That's what I said. Like I became an athlete, like I started focusing what I want, kind of thing. and I have the facility to do as well. And I was competing like a fair game because everybody else was going to Udor. Everybody else had the best skate parks, everybody else had sponsors. Else had money.
Yep.
So in that point, I didn't have to worry about money and worry about going to skate parks. I was just go to Udor and like practicing foam pits and elevate my game like incredibly. I went from like one double backflip to like 4 doubles and a triple like by 2005.
Yeah, which is incredible. And we're going to go to the second biggest event in the world. I know you said the Gravity Games was as big as the X Games, but I look at it as a little bit smaller than the X Games. And when you look at Gravity, your run in 2003 was impeccable. No pads, like we said. You land a double flat, double back, couple of 900s. And it's one of those situations where you may have had the best run in vert history, and then Eito Yasutoko goes and beats you. Is that a really frustrating part of being a vert skater in the early 2000s is you can skate your best, but then you always have 2 Yasutokos that can beat you at any time?
Well, yeah, they're amazing, like they are the real deal kind of thing. Even like skating at Udor, like I remember like I would go skate for an hour or two, and they would skate for 5-7 hours and every day they don't take a break, they're like really what you're supposed to be, I would say, I guess. But yeah, after 2003, after Gravity Games, most of the competitions, like I always like top 3, I always like second, third, like I don't know. I always beat Eito and lose for Takeshi, or beat Takeshi and lose for Eito. That was always something like that. But those kids are amazing.
Is that what makes you focus on the triple? Like, hey, I'm at Woodward. I've got this resi ramp where I can learn a triple backflip invert. And if I can land one of those in my contest run, I can beat these Yasutokos. Like, they don't have anything that will beat a triple?
Well, the triple was... we have Matt Lindemuth that tried first. He didn't land it.
Do you remember? Were you there for that?
Yeah, I was there. That was in Philly, I believe.
Yeah, and he went shins for like into the coping like 3 different times, it seemed like.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy because he never landed before. I mean, when I tried the X Games too, like 2005, I never landed. That's when I landed on my head. But then a week later, I went to Udor and then I landed like 5 in a row. And then in 2008, I landed again on the resi. But yeah, I just want to be the best. Like, that was time that I thought like I was just as good or even better than the Yasutokos, but they were the Yasutokos. Sometimes they would win the competition even before they competed.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say because there is a preconceived notion of how great they are. But I don't think they ever disappointed either. I mean, like, every contest they won, it was arguable that they really won. That, even though you had the double flats and the double backflips and Eito's runs were more robotic, it all depends on the judges' end. But if they picked you or they picked Eito, both would be a deserved winner, I feel like.
Yes, it's right. I mean, judge is a judge, like it's hard to talk because they have their opinion, like it all comes down to opinions. But like I remember watching competitions even when I left the scene and I see Mark Ungerhard skating better than them, and I think he deserved to win, but he wouldn't win, So it's just my opinion. I'm not talking down to anyone. I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Yep. And at that level, I mean, it's you, the Yasutokos, Mark Engelhardt. There was a couple other people sprinkled in there throughout the years. And really, anybody could have taken it at any time back then, it seemed like. But the Yasutokos were always a foot higher than everybody else, I feel like. And that's just how it was. But your last X Games experience is arguably your best contest experience ever, I would think. But before we talk about the actual contest, when you're an athlete at the X Games, it's the most important event in the world. What are the cool things that happen? Like, do you meet a lot of famous people?
Yeah, it's funny because you see like even like actors, celebrities at the green room, like hanging out, it's funny. Or even to see like Tony Hawk, because like all those athletes, they become celebrity, like Shaun White, all these guys. And it's just cool because they do treat you like you are a rock star and it feels good,
Yeah, and that's all in the athlete lounge where you're chilling out. And is there cool stuff for you in the athlete lounge? Is it like all you can eat, all you can drink, and then you're looking around and there's celebrities everywhere?
Yeah, they have all you can eat Taco Bell sometimes. You have massage on demand, like you have like phones that you can call the whole world. And yeah, it's pretty fancy though. And sometimes you even have like Carrot Top, like hanging out like some other like celebrities, I remember.
Do you ever see Carrot Top in Vegas? Because I've seen a commercial with him in it recently, and he looks pretty beat up.
I haven't seen him show yet. He's not attracted to me.
Okay. How about the gift bags? Did they get you a whole like nice set of gift bags with like speakers and watches and shit like that?
Yeah, that's a funny thing. It's like you go to a kids party, but it's an adult one, and they give you like a Ojo bag with like skull candies and like all the goodies like from the sponsorships. It's pretty cool. Yeah, like speakers, and I can remember they gave a lot of stuff, and it was pretty cool too.
And that last year, ESPN knows that you could win gold. Do they have more media for you set up before the event so they have all the Marco shots and the backstory they need just in case you win the medal?
That's the thing, though. Like I remember seeing that doing to other athletes, but to me at X Games, that never happened. I don't know. I didn't have that attention, to be honest.
Do you think it was just because you were Brazilian and you didn't speak English as well as some of the other guys?
Well, by then I was speaking good English, though.
Yeah, true.
I mean, the Yastoko brothers never speak English.
Yeah, but
until today,
they didn't have any interviews on TV either.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I cannot say it because I don't know why it didn't happen. But I think I was more like seen as an underdog kind of thing.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start out with the Seattle brand that has been around since 1913. I'm talking about Stanley, and they invented the category of keeping things hot and cold. Sure, there are a ton of overpriced copycats out there, but no one delivers the quality and, most importantly, the ability to keep things hotter or colder for longer than Stanley. I use the water bottles and pint glasses on a daily basis, and on weekends, their food storage solutions are perfect for all the foods you bring to eat at your local ski area. And while I know this won't last forever, the best deal you're going to find on any Stanley products anywhere comes through my podcast. I'm going to save you 30% off everything Stanley. All you need to do is go to stanley1913.com, go shopping, and when you check out, enter the one-word code DRINKFAST to get that deal. If you spend $75, I'll throw in a limited edition Powell Movement beanie. My final sponsor this round is Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Peter Glenn has been getting people out there for over 60 years, and whether you're going on vacation or a weekend warrior or ski or ride every day, Peter Glenn has all the brands, all the deals, a knowledgeable staff, a price-matching policy, and free shipping on orders of $49 or more. If you're listening to this podcast and need gear, please do me a favor and head on over to peterglenn.com. They have all the deals, and by buying from them, you are supporting the show and keeping it going. So please check out peterglenn.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. When you're on top of the vert ramp and you're dropping into the X Games, it's the biggest event of your life at that point. Do you get nervous at all?
Oh my God, yeah. I learned after, when I went back to competition after, like I finished Cirque, I learned that. But like back then, I remember even telling myself, like, what are you doing? Why are you here? You don't need to do this, kind of thing. But I feel like I work good under pressure. So I end up like doing better than I expected.
And that 2004 year, you end up taking second at the X Games. And that has to be the biggest moment of your competitive career, I would think.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy because I didn't skate for 6 months before the competition.
Were you coming off an injury?
Yeah, I torn my PCL, and then 3 months later, I torn the other one. So like in 3 months, I skated maybe 2-3 times, and then I torn the other PCL, and then I went straight from X Games. Because I did Latin X Games, and that's when I did the double back over the launch box, and I popped my knee. And then I recovered, and then I went to a YMCA, and then I fell again, and I popped the other one. So when I went to the X Games, I could barely bend my right leg. So I was pretty calm, but I landed all the tricks. I landed all my full run. And I got second. It was pretty amazing because I was not expecting from not skating for so long and still get second place.
Yeah, that was incredible. And that just cements you as one of the best vert skaters in the world. And it seems like everything is lining up perfectly for you. You're on top of the world. You've got silver at X Games. Everything's going right. And then in late 2004, ESPN makes the call to cut inline skating from the X Games. It was the sport that X Games was founded on almost. And what do you think when you hear this?
Yeah, it was pretty upsetting because then the next year we only had like vert demo. That was 2005. That was the last appearance in X Games for inline, I believe.
Yep.
But we still had the ASA competitions, like the LG they would call. And that was good enough. And it's a funny story because I wasn't allowed to compete in those competitions.
Is that because of Cirque?
It's something that happened. It was 2005 when they started doing the competition. Though they have LG in 2004. And then in 2005, they had all their stops, and I was not invited because of invitational only, and I was not invited to any at the moment. And I lived in Culver City, right next to the ASA office. And I would go there, like, hey, why I'm not going? Like I was still sponsored by Mountain Dew then. And they're like, oh, you have to give opportunity to the Europeans, blah, blah. The first competition was in Moscow, in Russia, and I was not allowed to go. I was like, man, I pay my tickets. I was like, no, but you only have 10 athletes, you cannot go. And it was very like weird to me that happened. And I was like, try to figure it out, And then even the shows that I used to do with them, like I wasn't doing anymore, I was kind of like boycott. That's my side of the story because I never got a straight answer. I started going to the office a lot and ask, like I would be pissed at them, like how can you do that to me? And then last minute, Ty Chris pull off the competition. He's not going to go to Moscow, and they bring me. And that was the first competition of the year, and I get second place. And then automatically I should be able to go to the next competition, and I was not allowed to compete the next competition. They had like 8 stops that year, and they all like with good money, I was with Mountain Dew, so I could even fly myself, and they were paying for everything. It was like a private event kind of thing in a competition format. And they were paying for like hotel, food, and money prize, so it was like a perfect scenario, but I was not allowed to go. And I still, to this day, I do not know why.
Yeah, I mean, that has to piss you off completely. It's like when you've done everything you can possibly do to put yourself into that position, and then they screw you, but they finally cover their bases because someone drops out and they bring you to their event and you get second, and then they don't qualify you for the next event. It's like, fuck you guys. You're totally messing with my income and my career here, and it's bullshit. I'm the second best person at your events right now, and you should have me at every single one. I can imagine that you were just irate.
Yeah, and then like they still had the Asian X Games, like other X Games around that I would go to, but that was like my main daily bread, that's what I was making money of it, and I could not understand. And in that year, 2005, in February, I got contacted by Cirque du Soleil as well. And I denied them. I was like, no, I don't want to go to Cirque. I want to compete. Like I'm top of my game right now. Like I'm about to be the best in the world. And it never happened, like I only went to this in Moscow because Tigers didn't go. And I went in England, in Rochester, I believe, for the finals. And I was already in Cirque when that happened. And I think I got 4th there. It's just a crazy story because I don't think I even deserved to be 4th place when the competition, like I lost for Fab and people fell and they still got 2nd place. But I really don't know what happened. Like, I don't want to make a story up, but like all I know is that I got cut off from competition.
Well, I guess if you look at everything now and how the business was managed compared to how your skating was managed, you are still getting paid to skate, and the ASA, I don't know if they're still going on because they've made some questionable decisions over the years. And the last event that they had, the World Championships in 2008, I believe was one of them. You end up winning the World Championships there, which is amazing. But at the same time, they rent out Key Arena in Seattle, which is where the Supersonics used to play, and it held 15,000 people. And they were lucky if they had 1,000 people at the World Championships for inline, skateboard, and BMX, which is kind of sad, and I don't think they ever really recovered from that one. But we're going to talk about Love right now. And in 2005, they come to get you to come try out again for them because they had you in 2000 in Brazil, and you did some stuff for them there. They said they'd talk to you in about 5 years, and they did. When you finally decide that you are going to do something with Cirque, because I guess you're being boycotted a bunch by the ASA, is it one of those things where it's like, hey, I've got to move to Vegas or move to Montreal and just spend 6 months learning what this show's all about?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know I was signed up for. I was so amateur back then that I didn't know. I did have a person, Rick Stark, that was my manager. He used to look for sponsors for me, and I handled to him. I was like, you deal with my contract and stuff like that because I was too young. I didn't know any better, to do all these decisions. But like it was kind of frustrating for me to go to Cirque. I was not 100% happy. I was like, fuck, I really want to like compete. Like I'm top of my game. Like I can beat the Astokos. And I had to go to Cirque. I was like, well, I have no option. I'll try it out at least, because I didn't know how the next year would be. And that was a really good decision if not one of the best decisions. Like the universe conspires to me to go there, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, everything changes for you in life right then. It's like that's when your career really starts. Where skating was a gig where you'd have contests here or there and you never knew what the next year was going to bring because everything seemed to always be changing. Cirque was the one area where you have just consistency in your life. I mean, I think you're doing like 40 shows a month, and it's like you are totally busy with Cirque at all times, and you're still being able to skate. But now you're skating on like a 6 foot wide vert ramp with like 4 other people on it. Is it way more challenging than the regular skating you were doing in the ASA level when you're skating with 4 people on those small ramps?
Yeah, that show ramp is pretty gnarly. I mean, they built themselves, so like the ratio of the ramp is not the best either. It is a very skinny. To learn like how to skinny on a 6 foot ramp, like wide, it was like a different thing. You know, I have to like, well, everyone that goes there, because like usually you rely to the whole ramp as a visual thing. If you do a 540, you see the coping like far away, and so you know where you are. And there you have nothing. It's a very challenging ramp. Also because it's 11 foot spine. You know, like there's nowhere else that you can scale like a 11 foot spine. You know,
Right.
like that's skinny too.
And I would think the pay level has got to be a big increase from the ASA as well. I mean, if you're doing 40 shows a month, and I'm just did some like remedial math in my head, and I was thinking that if you made $300 per show, you're at like $150,000 a year. Is the money really, really good in Cirque compared to anything else you've ever done?
Yes, the money is definitely really good in comparison to everything. Also because consistency. You know, you have the consistency of a paycheck. So you can really rely. You have a contract of a year and you know you're going to make that much money. And you know if you get injured, you still get paid, you know.
Are the contracts all year to year? Is it a 1 year deal every year and you have to prove yourself every season?
Yeah, our first year, because we did creation, it was a 2 year contract.
Okay.
And then after that, it was year by year. But yeah, they do evaluation every year to see how you're doing everything. We do physical tests every 6 months. It's a really good job, though. I still enjoy being there.
How about injuries? I would think it's a really demanding job that's high risk and you're doing more than just skating. I mean, I've seen you perform it probably 3 different times now. And at one point you were like standing in the crowd in full makeup next to me with like a bungee and you look over and you're like, "Hey, Powell." And I was like, "Holy shit, that's Marco." And then you just like swung into the stage. And with the acrobatics and everything, does that increase your pay but increase just the degree of difficulty of everything you're doing as well?
Yes, pretty much. When I came to Cirque, I came as a skater. And then I learned by myself. Like they don't really teach you anything. It's just like if you want to learn, you kind of learn yourself. And I became a b-boy, you know, a breakdancer, and a lot of acrobatics. I was doing trampoline. I did the latex thing, the bungee that you saw. It does increase your pay a little, but also the risks. Most of my injuries were not from skating after.
What injuries have you had? What serious injuries have you had at Cirque?
Well, I broke my ankle. I had to have surgery. I didn't have many injuries. That was the only one. And I did one that we had furry boots.
I remember that on your skates, they were like fur coming off of them.
And on the training on backstage on the ramp there, like the fur got caught on my back wheel when I was doing the backflip. And I did fall and then I hurt my hip pretty bad. That was like the only 2 injuries I had pretty much.
When you're laid up, injured with Cirque, they take really good care of you and it's like physio and everything that they have there on site for you.
Yeah, right on site, they take really good care of you, that's for sure. You have like a works compensation, they want you healthy.
The really cool thing for you, I mean, you live in Las Vegas and you've got a house and you've got all these things now, but you were able to move your mom over to the US and you bought a restaurant or started a restaurant with her. And it's like you've been probably able to do a lot of things that you never thought you'd be able to do just through Cirque du Soleil money and lifestyle.
True. Yeah, as soon as I got my documents, I brought my mom and we opened a restaurant. The restaurant's been open for 11 years already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very successful. And yeah, it did give me a good leverage, though, to start everything.
On top of that, you can look at your life as there was inline skating forever, then Cirque du Soleil, then investments in restaurant. But it seems like you've been killing it with cryptocurrency. Like I see that you're running these like online workshops, and have you made a ton of money just through crypto?
I don't do crypto. A lot of people think it's crypto because crypto is popular right now, but I'm a day trader. I'm a professional day trader now. It took me many years too, People think I start posting about like a year or something because I want to start giving seminars, and teaching people as well. But yeah, I do that for a living now. It's one of my main job, better than Cirque actually. And it took me a long time. I learned everything kind of by myself too until like we figured out the strategy that I have right now. And I partner with this guy in Brazil that he teaches courses, and I took his course and I'm just bringing his course to US right now because it's a legit thing, man. It's incredible. Like I offered to my mother, like if I didn't believe in the thing, I wouldn't give to my mother kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's amazing to see how successful that you've become over the years because I really met you as, Marco who didn't speak English, who was just like here. And I was like, man, I better give this guy my hotel room floor or else he's going to sleep out on the streets tonight. And I'm glad that never happened because you were able to make an incredible career out of everything. But now we're at a point in the show that I call inappropriate questions. I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions and they can be anything. And I thought it would be fitting to get the dude that I first met you with, who was traveling to the US with you, who I haven't heard from in forever. I've seen him skate a little bit here and there on the internet lately, but he's an absolute legend in all of skating, not just Brazil. His name's Carlos Pianowski, but he's known to everyone as Hardcore Brazil. And are you ready for question number 1 from Carlos?
Yeah, let's go.
Hello, Marco. What's up? Here's Carlos Pianowski, and I got a request from Mikey to make a few questions. So here we go. First question. In which event did you get more nervous, more anxious before it happened? The final in the X Games or the show premiere in the Cirque de Soleil? And why?
It was definitely the X Games, man. The X Games, you grow up watching, and that was my dream. I remember '94, I was watching on ESPN. I was like, I'm gonna win that competition one day, So when I got there, it was one of the most nerve-wracking competition for sure. It was a heavyweight one, like I don't think you can compare.
Do you get nervous at all for Cirque shows?
Not really. Any shows that I've done, because we've done many shows before too, so it was just another show. You do get nervous a little for premiere and stuff like that, but you can't compare, Like X Games, you only have 2 chances, 2 runs, and that's it.
True.
In the show, if you fall, it's okay, like nobody's really judging you, and you have another one to do the next day.
And speaking of, I asked you about seeing famous people in the X Games backstage area, but I bet you see way more famous people at Cirque. I mean, like, do you meet like Paul McCartney and people like that?
Yeah, Paul McCartney almost became my friend. I'm serious. We met at the premiere. Like I left the show like right after. I didn't even take my makeup off because like I just want to go to the bar, and chill. And I get there, and Paul was there, and we were having beer for like over an hour until they kick us out. They find out that we were not supposed to be there, kind of thing. And he was a super cool guy. That was the biggest contact and friendship with a celebrity that I ever had was Paul McCartney, and it's probably like one of the biggest names in the world,
Yeah.
And I met him again at the Grammys, and we talk again, and he's like an amazing person, like down to earth. And we met many other like celebrities too, like Shaquille O'Neal or Tom Cruise. They all come backstage. Like I have even on my Instagram, like playing soccer with one of the celebrities.
That's pretty cool. And one thing that I thought was weird when I went backstage with you, because you had mentioned your makeup and you left your makeup on, is you're responsible for doing your makeup yourself, right? Like when you do makeup, you have a makeup room and you have the mirror with the lights on it, but you're doing the makeup. It's not a makeup person doing you.
Yeah, we all have to learn. They do like a whole process that you have to do, and then they check, they correct until you know how to do by yourself. Because if you think about it, it's like a 65 to 70 artists. Like it would take days to do every single artist. And you learn it. You become like a professional, You can give tips to your wife and stuff like that.
Okay. All right, we'll go with question number 2.
Back in the day, me, you, and Lucas, we made a journey from Florida to Cali by car, and we have basically no money. I want to know from you, which one was the moment that was the craziest or the most bizarre situation on this whole trip?
Oh, man. Well, we were driving cross country with an old ass car, and we were asleep, and the other one driver would like switch around. We didn't have a scary moment, like it's just funny because we had no cell phones. We have like a paper that was a map, and we're not afraid of anything. And today, like, we're afraid to live with our phones.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that story was, like, we met Kato at the skate park from Remedies, and we had no place to stay, and he invited us to stay at his motorhome. And he says, like, oh yeah, I have a motorhome, you can stay. It's like by the beach. He's like, but you have to share with 3 girls. And we're like, oh shit, we were lucky. And then we got there, it was like girls from Sweden, but they were like 2 were girlfriends, and the other one also like girls. They were like all gay girls. And did not work out the way we thought it was supposed to, but we were pretty lucky in that trip too, that got a place to stay. When you could stay as long as we want. I remember staying there for like over 2 months at San Diego and Mission Beach, like taking showers on the beach, like we would have like a soap bar and just go and with surf shorts and wash ourselves. We didn't have money. Like, if you have to drive somewhere, you have to calculate so to put gas and everything.
And those are the crazy days where life was probably the most fun that it ever was, but it was also the most challenging at the same time.
Yeah, but that's the way to live, man. God take care of you.
Yep.
Just let God do the work. If you trust God, things work out, Sometimes we analyze too much, we think too much when everything's fine. It's just the storytelling in our heads, like we need money, we need this, we need that, and everything works out. It's pretty much faith in God. Like, we never doubted things would work out. We just keep going.
And they worked out for all parties involved on that one. I'm going to go with your last inappropriate question from Hardcore Brazil. Here we go.
I used to love watching you competing on vert ramp. You're always doing something insane and so stylish. If they ever come back with something like the X Games or even bigger, would you ever think about competing again?
I think I totally would go back. I'm in a really good shape, and I'm self-dependent. I don't depend on anything. I don't need a sponsorship. I don't need anything right now, I can make my own money. So, like, I think it would be like a fun thing to do. I would not be nervous at all to compete right now,
And if a competition were to happen right now, I would think that the best vert skaters in the world would kind of be the best vert skaters in the world from 2004, the last X Games. I would think it would still be the Yasutaka brothers, yourself. Engelhart still skates a lot. Who else is a great vert skater at this moment in time?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Takeshi, he's never stopped skating, and he's probably the best skater overall in the world. Yeah, I don't know. There's some new skaters, but like not as the level that we were to be.
No, and I think that's why I'm just saying that if you were to have a contest tomorrow, I think the podium would be identical to the podium that it was in 2004, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. We were like on a really, really high level back then. Like, even if you compare like our level back then to skis back then or any other sports, like we were like above and beyond for sure.
Definitely pushing the envelope. And I mean, you could see it on the men's and the women's side too. I mean, I think, didn't Fab have a double backflip too?
Yeah, she had like double back 900s and she was like on top too.
Yeah. So it was an amazing time, but you've went and taken that amazing time and parlayed it into a full-on career that has nothing to do with competition. And really, your story is like my favorite story because I met you when you had nothing going for you, it seemed like. It was just the kid who didn't speak English, who was coming here to prove something to himself and the world. And after a few years, you did that, man. You made all your dreams come true. And, when you look at all the different players in the world of skate, it's like you've come out on top. Everybody else is trying to piecework things together and make careers out of it. But you and Mark Engelhart and the guys that went to Cirque du Soleil, that was the right decision. And you've got an amazing career and an incredible future ahead of you. And it's because of the decisions you made. And yeah, you might have had to give up skating and you were sad a little bit about skating when the ASA wasn't inviting you to their contest. But you know what? It was probably the best thing for you at the end of the day because you are where you are now. And I'm excited to be a small part in your success. And I thank you for your time.
Yeah, man, you're the guy that, man, you saw my life, man. Like, you're the only few that, like, really follow me from the bottom to the top. Even when I tell the story, it's kind of crazy. Like, everything, like, from going to a competition blindly and meeting you and then become a K2 rider, and become a good friend with you too,
Yeah, you are the American dream, but the Brazilian version.
I made it.
So that was time with Marco De Santi, and what a cool story that never would have happened without me. I'm totally kidding, it's all about Marco's talent, but I'm happy to have played a small part in it. And really, like I said earlier, when Marco got here, he didn't speak a word of English. It was almost irresponsible for someone to let him come to a new country like that at such a young age. But Marco was hungry, and he had to succeed. There was no other option. He's really the only person in life that I've known to really roll the dice with their life and make it work out. And to do that at such a young age with no education, that's wild. But Marco made it happen and has become more successful than almost any inliner of his time. There's something to be said for that. That's the show for this week. At this point, I want to ask you to subscribe wherever you listen, and please star rate me or review me. If you listen on Spotify, just click 5 stars under my logo and you're done. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a star review. And if you write a review and I read that review on the podcast, I will send you a limited edition Powell Movement beanie. So if you hear a review that you've written be read on the podcast, you email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com. I send you this custom beanie. If you're not in the US, well, I email a friend of yours who lives in the US that custom beanie because I don't ship outside of the continental United States. On top of that, I want to thank you for listening and encourage you to support my sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Elon Skis, the 10 Barrel Brewery, and Rollerblade. Have a great week, everyone.